kind of how we're going to do this, we're going to kind of hit it with some sections. So first off, and we're going to have Q&A as well if any of you all have any specific issues. So wait, we're going to do that kind of close to the end, and I'm not going to keep you all on long. So first, Brittany, can you walk us through how to approach the test? What are we up against? The differences in the two tests? I get that question all the time, like, which one should I take? You know, which one, you know? So can you bring us to the test? What are we looking at before us?
Absolutely. And I get that same question. And again, as I was facing this, like, which is which, we are used to taking the NCLEX and just going in and, having one exam and not having to decipher between one or another. But the ANCC versus the AANP, I tell people to really focus in on how your study style is, your learning style. With the ANCC, people think that it's going to be more difficult because it has more factors, it has a lot of the non-clinical components. And I said, honestly, it's not that one is easier than the other, but what fits best for you. Both of them, you are credentialed the same throughout. A lot of people have gotten the idea that the ANCC is better, but the only thing is the ANCC was out first. So a lot of organizations are more familiar with the ANCC, and so that's why they commonly gravitate towards that in some spectrums, but they're the same. You are credentialed equally from either board that you take, so don't sit there and make a decision based upon thinking one is, more highly, looked at versus the other. So that's not one of those things. But when you sit down and look at what the test truly offers, they have changed in 2019. Of May, like 22nd or so, they changed the exam. So the ANCC, that's the one that has now 175 questions. You have 3.5 hours to take the exam, whereas the AANP has 150 questions, and you have 3 hours to take this exam. Now, on the ANCC, they have non-clinical and clinical questions, but this exam is predominantly non-clinical, and I mean like 65 and greater percent of the exam, yes, is non-clinical. And so some people ask, what does non-clinical mean? That's your culture, your research topics, your ethics, your Medicaid versus Medicare, your billing options and things of that nature. So they do highly look towards those questions, I should say. But I want you to understand that they do put clinical content in there. So although it may be non-clinical in the question format, it's still clinical, so to speak. And to elaborate on that, like, for example, they may say, it's an Asian 45-year-old lady that comes in, and then it starts to go into hypertension, diabetes, or whatever else they may have going on. So you're still having to do the clinical aspect, but it also wants you to think and identify on the cultural aspects of how Asian populations may like to treat and, manage their care. And so they kind of merge the two, so it can go both ways. So that's how the ANCC is. But I also say, I am a visual learner, so I said the ANCC worked well for me because they offer multiple testing styles. So you're going to get the multiple choice questions, you're going to get the drag and drop questions, you're going to get those hot spot questions, which are like click here on the image, etc. And you're going to get select the best 2 or select the best 3. So I feel like those who learn better, who are visual learners and things of that nature, this may be a better exam for you just because it gives you a variety on your testing style. So you're able to look at the image and click on those if you're visual, and then select the best 2 and select the best 3. When we come from the NCLEX, we get so overwhelmed with the select all that apply. But I think this is a little bit better because, when we have NCLEX, it's like select all that apply. You don't know if I need to select 1 or all 4 or none of these, But with select the best 2 or 3, it's specifically telling you exactly how many answer choices you need to select. So I think that's a huge help. And I've seen, like, when I work on that with my review students, that they find that very helpful. Whereas with the AANP, it's strictly all multiple choice questions. People have the idea that on the AANP that there are no non-clinical questions. There are some, again, as I mentioned earlier, that they may be incorporated with some of the other question styles. So you don't realize that it's truly a non-clinical question, but it is looking at that non-clinical content. But overall, it's all multiple choice questions for that exam. So just pick what works best for your learning style so that you're able to apply the knowledge you have for those test questions.
So when I took the test back in 2012, I
Mm-hmm.
remember sitting through, I want to say, I Barkley told me this, Barkley Associates and Amelie, when they were going over the different tests at that time, they were telling us that AAMP was all clinical.
Mm-hmm.
None, they was like all clinical.
Yeah.
And ANCC was there had theory and there was research, and the
Mm-hmm.
type of theory that they had on the test was not what we went through school for. And that
Right.
freaked me out because I was
Right.
like, okay,
Exactly.
the things that they have given me, I can study that. But if you start pulling
Right.
in some other stuff,
That
then
I
I
have
don't
no.
know,
Mhm.
and so that's what was the deciding factor for me was AAMP. Plus, there were less questions. Plus, at the time, it was a cheaper test, and I was tight on
Right.
money. And
Uh-huh.
so I was like, let's go.
Right.
AAMP, you're the one for me.
Exactly.
So just curious, which
Exactly.
one did you take and how did you choose?
So, okay, so for those of you who don't know me, in my background, I wasn't successful on my first attempt. So I've taken both exams. So that's
Mm,
why I can tell people, look, this is how this one is, and this is
okay.
how this one is. And the thing that was the game changer for me, because I was the same way with the ANCC, was that it wasn't what we learned in school. So you
Mhm.
had to learn what they were truly testing you on. And so I was able to identify that and be able to be successful, but I am ANCC certified. So that was the boards that I went through. Because I was the same way with you. I went with AAMP first because I'm like, oh, I want to do that or whatever. But being a visual learner, I felt so much better on the ANCC because it wasn't like I was just strictly answering multiple choice questions, because I can get tired of, just reading scenarios to answer the questions. So it gave me a variety. I was able to click images like, okay, you know, I can tell you that's psoriasis. Let me click here, okay, where on the chest x-ray should I click for somebody with, TB or whatever? Let me click here, and so that helped me for my learning style. So I
Okay.
just tell people to think of those things. But yeah, so I passed with the ANCC.